Good morning for another episode of Vision Alignment. We have got a stacked day today with all that we have going on, but I'll tell you, our special guest is gonna he is just gonna set your world on fire. He is such a great guy, and I can't tell how important it is for us all to be listening as we go through this. But before that, I wanted to tell you a little bit about what we have going on tomorrow. So tomorrow is again another Vision Alignment where we're going to be talking more about your vision and how you need to understand, how you don't need to understand, how you can understand what makes you unique. And that uniqueness is really going to set your world on fire. If you can begin to do that and have a better understanding and who you're going to serve in that uniqueness. So that's going to be a great session we're going to have tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And then at 11:30, we're going to be talking about we're going to be talking about the stroke of genius. And in the stroke of genius, we talk with different people that have disabilities and their disabilities and their caregivers. So look forward to that tomorrow at 11:30. It's going to be a great day. It's going to be a great show. We've got a lot of good stuff going. So without any further ado, let me introduce to you Mr. Dan Miller, New York Times bestseller, Dan Miller. Hello, Dan.
Hey, good morning, Brian.
How are you?
I'm excellent. Just living the dream.
That is so true. Sounds like you've got a great life and things are going very well.
Yeah. I know it's been a challenging year. I don't want to diminish that at all. A lot of people have suffered, and I grieve for that. But I have not, and I count my blessings in the fact that I have not. So it's been really a wonderful year.
Yeah. Well, that's great to hear. I'm so happy for you. Dan, can you tell me, just walk us back and tell me and all the listeners your story?
Wow, that's a wide open question. We have 3 hours here. Well, I'll give you the short version. I grew up on a farm in Ohio. My dad was bivocational. He pastored a little tiny church, but was a farmer to make a living. No pay for the pastoring side. So being a farmer was just a necessity. There was no talk of enjoying what we did, having fulfillment in it at all. It was just doing what was needed, doing what had to be done. So life was an obligation to get through. And then if you don't mess it up too bad, then we get to go to heaven. So that was kind of the theology and the work model. And I thought, wow, there's got to be more to this life we're living here than that. So I very quickly started looking for what would it mean to really be doing things even during the week that you enjoyed, and put me on this path. So I went to school, went to the Ohio State University, got a degree in psychology, then went and got my master's degree. And that whole pursuit was to how to figure this out. How can we live a life that we enjoy? How can we do work that we enjoy? And then along the way, I started teaching a Sunday school class at the church we were going to in Nashville, Tennessee. And I thought that I would have, the 22-year-old who just lost his job at Burger King show up, because it was career life management. How can you get another job? And well, we had a few of those, but what surprised me is we had dentists and engineers and physicians and pastors and accountants showing up. And I'm like, what are you guys doing here? Like, well, everybody sees us as doing okay, but I don't think this is it. I think there's more than just what we're doing here. And it put me in this wonderful space of helping people really go deeper, figure out how God has gifted you and what that ought to look like in meaningful, purposeful, profitable work. So for the last 25 years, that's what I've done. Along the way, written some books, developed courses, online community, but it's all a matter of helping people figure out how to do work that matters for people who care.
That's awesome. One of your most famous books, maybe most famous, and it's the title of your website. It's 48 Days to the Work You Love. Now, I know you've rewritten it, and now it's the 48 Days to the Work and Life You Love. So tell us a little bit about that, how that all came about. Is that directly from that first meeting you had?
It really has developed right from the very beginning. Yeah, that core message. And then in teaching that Sunday school class that grew larger and larger, I had real life stories of people going through the process. So we just came out with what is the 20th anniversary edition of 48 Days to the Work, and we added that in life, work
Hmm.
and life you love. I updated it every 5 years. So it came out first in 2000, then 2005, 2010, 15. Now this is the brand new one. So about 30% of that core message that was there 20 years ago is still the same. But as you know, the workplace has changed dramatically. So in the
Huh.
new version, I address a lot of things that have changed. How to handle artificial intelligence interviews, where you
Hmm.
may be screened through 3 interviews and never talk to a human. How to handle being a digital nomad, where you may not have an office to go to, but you can work anyway. So I address some of those new things in the new version, but that book is still the core message. Now, there's other things that we have that have come out of that. No More Dreaded Mondays, another book, Wisdom Eats Passion, Rudder of the Day, some other things, but that core message is still the same year after year. In 48 days, you can dramatically change your life in 48 days if you create a plan and act on it.
Yeah, that's a great message. It seems to be received very well across the country. I mean, and probably across the world.
I'm thrilled. Every day we get notes from people about how their lives have changed. And I feel very honored to be able to play some little piece in people's ability to have the lights come on, to get a new sense of clarity, purpose, mission, direction, calling, and then to live that out daily. A lot of times people have a dichotomy. They think, well, on the weekend, that's when I grow spiritually. That's when I have fun. That's when I can relax. But then during the week, man, it's bite the bullet off to the salt mines. Well, if
Hmm.
you get an integration where you're really doing something you enjoy, retirement, as an example, loses its appeal. All of a sudden, it's like, why would I retire? Retirement implies as soon as I can quit this stinking job that I hate and do what I
Yeah.
enjoy. Well, what if you figured out in advance? What if you figured that out at 23 years old, or at 53 years old, or 60 years old, where you're doing during the day what you really enjoy? Then retirement all of a sudden is an empty concept. You continue doing what you're doing. My goal, Brian, is to write another chapter for a book in the morning and go to my funeral that afternoon.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. It's a great. You've got such a different personality. I mean, I talk with people quite often, and they have more. Sometimes they have more abrasive personalities. Maybe sometimes they won't even give me the time of day, and maybe it's just me. But
Uh,
you've always been so gracious with your time, and you've even written the endorsement for the back of my book. Sometimes it does take a brain surgeon, and when we met, you actually signed it. So, your personality and the way you come across is so kind and generous, and I'm impressed, and I'm very very thankful. I thank my lucky stars every day that our good friend Carrie Oberbrenner introduced us, and that you and I are both together in this world. So thank you.
well, I appreciate that, but that's significant because I cringe when I see somebody who's had a little bit of success and all of a sudden they're inaccessible. There's no way
Yeah.
to reach them anymore. If they have a speaking engagement, they walk in from the side curtain, walk on stage, deliver, and walk out. I don't want to do that. I don't want to ever. I think it would compromise my message for one thing if I didn't have daily contact with people who are still in the trenches, who are still trying to get that first job at McDonald's, who are frustrated in what they're doing at 45 years old. I want to hear those real life stories. And the way to do that is to continue talking to people like that every day, which I do.
That's what I was going to ask. How do you stay so connected with this whole AI resume and AI interview process? I mean, I didn't even know much about that, so I'm interested to hear more about that.
Okay. Well, that is a very real process whereby companies today put out a position opening and they may have 3,000 applicants. It takes a lot of manpower to screen through those well. People get fatigued. We know that they make different decisions in the morning compared to the afternoon. If you're doing an interview, you want to get it in the morning, like between 9 and 11 o'clock. You're more likely to be hired than if you interview in the afternoon at 3 and 4, even if you're the same person, same credentials.
Huh.
So there's those kind of things where there's individual fatigue. But if you're dealing with a machine, it has the same objectivity no matter what time of day or night it is. So it's really not an unrealistic process. The machine can very objectively identify your tone of voice, how it comes across, your eye contact. I mean, a lot of things about you, they can really go through and screen that. So it's not unrealistic, even though it sounds a little impersonal, but it can help
Hmm.
companies screen through to candidates that are really reasonable for them very, very quickly, where then they may have a personal interview with somebody.
Interesting. So I guess tell me a little bit about how you stay involved. You continue to talk to people, but and this probably a lot comes from your book. But how do you stay so grounded? How do you stay with that sense of clarity that you know what you're doing? And-
Wow, that's a great question. There's a lot of things that ought to confirm we're on the right track. It's not just serendipity, it's not just luck. You know, if I decide that I'm going to be an author, that I want to write books, which I love doing, then there ought to be some affirmation of that. There's going to be people who appreciate what I wrote. When I'm writing, it's not a hardship. It's not something where I feel like I'm taking bad medicine. It's something that I enjoy doing. You know, where because of the writing, I get speaking engagements and opportunities like this to come on and talk about that content. So there ought to be some affirmation that keep you going. If there's none of that, then it kind of begs a question. Maybe I ought to look at something else because I think when we're really doing something, it is our sweet spot. And I'm sure you've heard me talk about the idea that that sweet spot is like a three-legged stool. It ought to combine our passion, talent, and money. When
Hmm.
those three come together, you get that sense. It's just like that spot on a tennis racket where if you hit the ball there, ooh, it is that sweet spot. You maximize the power of that ball going back over the net.
Hmm.
We ought to have little indicators of that in our daily lives. And I have a lot of that. I mean, I don't have a lot of negativism anywhere in my life. And I'm not just saying that, you know, everybody pats me on the back. That would be unrealistic. But there's a lot of indicators that what I do has benefited other people and that keeps me going in the same direction.
Yeah, that's great, and I hear what you're saying. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Is there something you do daily to, or maybe weekly, that key, kind of a key tactic or a practice you keep coming back to that helps you to do that?
Yeah, I love your question because there really is. I mean, I'm very intentional about the use of my time. In as
Mm,
much as you've talked about my being accessible, I don't just get up in the morning and just kind of see what's happening, you know, see, gee, what am I going to do today? I'm very, very focused in how I spend my time. But one of the keys for adding to my productivity is how I handle the first 2 hours of every day. I'm very protective of that. Those 2 hours. I get up early, an early morning riser, still my old days of being raised on the farm as a farm kid, I think. I love the early morning, seeing the sunrise, but I get up early. My wife does not, so this helps me have that time all to myself.
yeah.
But I get out of bed, I do some stretches to protect my back and physique. Stretches first, and then I do my devotions. I use Muse. It's a process to help me with my meditation, but I do that for about 30 minutes. And then sometimes I hit the treadmill, but most times, now that we're in Florida, I just head out the door and I walk for an hour, walk at a very rapid pace. And during that period of time, I listen to positive podcasts, always pure, clean, positive input.
Hmm.
In this period of time, I have never yet checked my email, turned on the news, paper, nothing like that at all. I don't want anything negative creeping into my brain. After 2 hours, then I shower. I'm ready for the day. I meet Joanne at that point. We have a cup of tea and a muffin together. Then I'm ready to start the day. Then, whatever the day brings, I'm already prepared mentally, spiritually, for whatever the day may bring. There's nothing that's going to take me down. That's a really important practice of mine. And I
Yeah.
see a lot of people who, you know, jump out of bed late. Gee, they hit the alarm clock, grab a cup of coffee, out the door, fight traffic. I don't have that. And I again grieve for those people, and I see what that does to set the tone of what kind of day they're going to have.
Yeah.
Now, another
Yeah.
thing, Brian, since you asked about that, is I'm also very clear about what every day of the week holds for me. So on Monday, I handle everything having to do with business. So meetings with my team, if we're evaluating new software, new vendor relationships, whatever, that all happens on Monday. Tuesday is all coaching. So any coaching appointments I have are done then. Meet with my coaching mastery students that are going through our program. I meet with my mastermind. That all happens on Tuesday. Wednesday morning, I do my podcast. I work on that. Wednesday afternoon, I'm available for interviews. Thursday morning, sometimes I have carryover interviews as well, like we're doing today. Got a
Hmm.
couple this morning, but then Thursday afternoon and all day Friday, no appointments, no commitments. Those are reserved for what I call deep work. Those are times when I can read, I can study, I can take a course, I can work on a manuscript that I'm working on, or next seminar or course that we're developing. But those are uninterrupted long blocks of time where I'm focused on those things. So there are times when I'm not accessible, where nobody's going to be able to, I don't answer my phone, I don't answer text, don't answer email, because when I'm working on projects, I'm focused in uninterrupted blocks of time for that.
Hmm. Well, I think there's a lot there. I mean, we could talk a lot for that. But I'll tell you, I think I got my morning routine from you, because my morning routine is very, very similar to yours.
All
It's
right.
it's very even down to the stretching. So yeah, that was an interesting conversation you had there. Um, wow, there's a lot there. So gosh, what's my next question? Uh,
I also, on Friday afternoons, every Friday afternoon, I end that day with a massage.
oh,
Again, part of my health routine. Don't do it just as some frivolous luxury. It's very much part of our health routine, both Joanne and I. So that ends the week. And Saturday and Sunday, we're free to do whatever we want to do. Often it involves, reading, just spending time with friends. But I'm ready to go. Hit it Monday morning, eager to get back to the things that I really do enjoy as well.
oh, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you being so responsive via email or text or however we've communicated over the years. And your graciousness is it's amazing. So thank you for that. So tell me a little bit then about what you do you don't seem like you need to, but what do you do to recharge?
Ah, well, it's interesting because my wife keeps thinking I ought to have, more developed hobbies,
Hmm.
but uh, I would rather read a new book. I mean, there's so many great books coming down. I mean, I'd rather do that than going golfing. We live in a golf community. Everybody assumes that if you're here, you're a golfer. I am not. I could care less about golfing. I don't fish, I don't bowl, I don't do any of those normal kind of guy things, but I love reading. Reading to me is recharging. We have a pool, so I can jump in there on a moment's notice, and I find that to be very cathartic, very cleansing, because what I typically do is we have speakers out there, and I typically have on there, again, a book or podcast that I'm listening to, and I find it to be really great time to be creative and innovative. So even if it's a Sunday afternoon, I'm likely to be doing that. I'm
Hmm.
not looking for things that I have to artificially bring into my life to give me energy. I tend to be high energy. I'm pumped up every morning, ready to go. I don't feel lethargic. So I don't know, Brian. I listened to a podcast just this morning from Michael Hyatt talking about how every businessman needs a hobby. And he right now is into bass fishing. He bought a fancy new boat to help him do that. And I thought, you know what? I can't imagine spending the time out there because it's just not something that I enjoy.
Yeah.
I'm looking for things. One of the things I want to do this coming year is to bring more music into my life. I've always enjoyed music. I don't play an instrument, So I've purchased a keyboard and I'll be taking lessons on playing the keyboard. So I look for things where I see a spark of something that really interests me, and I want to nurture that and bring it more into full development. So that's something I'm doing, but I'm not somebody who has a lot of hobbies. I so enjoy the things that I do that I tend to do a lot of those things you know about.
Yeah. Oh, this is great. This is. There's so much packed in here. You've seen the comments from some of the people coming across. I mean, this is really good information. So thanks so much for sharing this. Uh, I wonder though. You talked a little bit about podcasts. Michael Hyatt. Oh my gosh, that guy he's good. And just like you. But what other kind of podcasts or more books are you reading right
Um, I just read a new book by Dan Cockrell. I just interviewed Dan on Tuesday.
now?
He was the former vice president of Disney's Magic Kingdom, and he wrote a book, How's the Culture in Your Kingdom? So I'm always looking for people like that. Michael has a brand new book out, Why Entrepreneurs Will Save the World. So I'm always looking for things like that. But I also read other things. Like I'm reading right now Joe Dispenza's book on becoming superhuman. It's
The
about
mindset.
yes, about using our
Good.
mindset, using our bodies in ways that we typically overlook. So, and listening to podcasts, I mean, I listen to things that are not just business development. It's not just always how to scale your business, get more subscribers or anything like that. I listen to Krista Tippett. I listen to typology. I
Hmm.
listen to Becoming Mystics, where they talk about some of the old spiritual thinkers. So I listen to a lot of things like that are not just business related. I don't read novels. I don't enjoy fiction. So I
Hmm.
don't go there, but I read a pretty broad scope of things that are just personal development.
That's great. Kenneth has a lot to say about you too. He loves the keyboard idea. So you don't play anything now? You're
No,
going from never playing an instrument to going onto the keyboard.
that's right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
I
wow.
love music. And I just thought rather than just being a recipient of that, I ought to do something to more fully connect myself with music. Now, I don't expect to be, Eddie Van Halen or anything anytime soon, but I expect to be able to sit down and play, House of the Rising Sun and some songs that are recognizable and be able to do the chords and do those. And I think it'll be, I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited about it. I think it'll be something that I enjoy a lot.
Hmm.
I do enjoy cars, though. We kind of glossed over that. I do enjoy cars. Just this Monday night, we had a trunk or treat event here in the community that we live in. And rather than kids coming to the doors, we had cars parked together at the club up on the grass in the parking area where our clubhouse is, with the trunks open and decorations and then candy in the trunks where kids would come by. Now,
Hmm.
this is not normal trunk or treat. These were cars. They were Lamborghinis and Ferraris and Bentleys and Porsches and Corvettes. So it was a pretty select group of cars, and I had a lot of fun meeting the other drivers, as the kids were coming by as well. But pretty special event, and I do enjoy those.
Hmm. Wow, that's great. So for example, talk about events that you go to. Obviously, we're not able to go to many events right now with COVID, but what type of a typical event would you go to where you go in person, or maybe even speak in person? What do you like?
Those tend to be ones that you would expect where there's podcasters, there's authors, people in social media there. So, social media marketing world that is typically in March in San Diego. I
Yeah.
haven't missed that. And I guess I've been there for 6 or 7 years. Um, Podcast movement. That's happening right now as we speak, and that is happening virtually this year. But I'm doing a presentation for that this afternoon. Podcast movement. Our mutual friend Carrie Oberbrunner just had his Igniting Souls. Carrie puts on an amazing event. It just broke
Yeah.
my heart. It couldn't be live this year. He did it virtually, used some technology that was mind blowing, but I had the privilege of speaking at that event. So those are the kind of things, that I continue to show up at, speak at, the events that Michael Hyatt does, the copywriting events that Ray Edwards does. I mean, those are the kind of things that I've been attending for quite some time and continue to go to learn and also support, colleagues of mine and what they're doing.
Hmm. I'm going to bounce off the screen here for a little bit, but I want to ask you, and you can give a longer answer to this if you want to. What does the next level of success look like for you?
Okay, sure. Well, I love writing, and I've got writing projects that are in the works right now. The next one coming up is going to be called An Understanding Heart, which is a little bit different than some of the books that I'm known for, where I write about how to find work that's meaningful, fulfilling, and profitable. I'm going to continue with that as a core message. But on Sunday mornings, I get up early and I write a short piece that's more philosophical, more spiritual, that I call Sabbath Musings. And I send that out to just the members of my personal mastermind. So just a very small group of 30 people. They're the only ones who get that. Well, the one that I wrote this last Sunday was number 176. So I've been doing it for quite some time, obviously doing only one a week. And I've now drawn out 71 of those and put them together in a new piece. But now this is where I'm going to really be counterintuitive, because publishers are trying to get books that are cheaper to make, where we can just get the information out to people. I'm really going retro on this because I'm going to produce it in a simulated leather cover with gold edged pages, a bookmark, very heavy piece. And it's the kind of thing that publishers cringe at. But I'm going to do it that way anyway. I'm going to have it done. It'll be printed internationally, and then shipped over here. So it's going to be more like a legacy piece. Now, again, it defies all reason, all logic in terms of producing another book, but it's a heartfelt project of mine. I'm thrilled about the idea. I'm getting a lot of information for people. It's not the kind of thing that I expect to go on and be a New York Times bestseller. Numbers really don't matter to me, but having
Yeah.
something I can give to close friends, and it's going to be way more expensive than a book ought to be. Rather than being $12, it's going to be $48. So I'm doing things that any business person would say can't be done. I'm moving in. So, but I'm going to continue, in response to your question, I will continue writing new content. More and more and more of my time will be spent doing that. As I age, as I have more options, I'll spend more time doing that rather than less.
That's good to hear, because we really appreciate your words. The writing that you do, it's been incredible. I have a copy of my book here, but it's actually on my Kindle, so I'm not able to show you the physical copy of the 48 days. But there's some other people here that have joined in, and I want to make sure that they're want to make sure that they're hearing you and they're loving what you're saying. So very appreciative of that. So
Well, another thing that really ties into some of the things that you've talked about here is, we created 3 years ago, we started the 48 Days Eagles online community. So it's 40dayseagles.com. And that's a way to kind of scale the opportunity to connect with people. So we used to do small live events on our property in Tennessee, 60 people maximum. Well, now we have an online community where we've got about 1,100 people at this point who are talking to each other, encouraging each other. So there's not as much of me. It's not a top-down teaching process. We have a lot of brilliant people in there who help each other. And I love watching what's happening there. So just giving people a place for their conversations has been one of the most fulfilling things I've done in the last couple of years. And that's something we'll continue to grow. I'm really excited about what's happening there.
And what was that called again?
It's called the 40 Days Eagles.
48 Days Eagles?
48 Days Eagles. So 40dayseagles.com give people an introduction to that
Eagles.
community. And it's people who are just sharing ideas and resources. They all have ideas where they want to grow. Most of them want to grow significant income, and we give them roadmaps for how to do that. They go through stages. We have people who have grown to, $1 million businesses in there because they followed a pattern. 40dayseagles.com. There you go. That's cool. Yeah,
That's it.
that's it. That's it. Yep. Love what's
Awesome.
happening here.
Well, that's great. I'm so appreciative of you coming on today, Dan, and I'm just thankful and blessed to have you as a friend, and I'm looking forward to continue on. But before we leave, what is it that else that we can do to help you, to support you, and how else can our listeners stay in contact with you?
Wow. Well, I appreciate that. Well, doing the podcast is the most powerful connection tool I've ever experienced. I taught a Sunday school class, as we mentioned, for a while, and then I had an opportunity to be on live radio because the Sunday school class grew so much. I was asked to be on live radio. Did that for 6 years, 100,000 watt station in Nashville, and then discovered podcasting. And I've never looked back. But at each time, I'm more than 10 times my audience. So podcasting, the 40 Days podcast, I answer listener questions. It's not just teaching or interviewing, it's answering listener questions. So that's an easy way to connect. Or that 48 Days Eagles online community. That's the easiest way to really rub shoulders with other people who are on the same path.
Oh, did I have that wrong? Is it 48 days?
Oh, it is. My goodness, I didn't even see that. Yes, it's 48 days, obviously.
Of course.
48. I'm so used to see my mind saw 48, even though you got 40 in there. That's interesting. I have no idea what 40.
There, I just corrected. How's that? You like that, don't you? Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. I appreciate it. If there are any questions for Dan, and again, this will be available on recording. So if there are any questions for Dan, put them in the comments. I'll make sure that I get them to Dan. We'll get them answered. So that's really important. But if you're listening to this on a replay, put in the hashtag replay, and just continue to help let us know how we can best serve you. So I'll have on more guests like Dan in the future, and hopefully, you can give us some additional ideas on people you'd like for us all to reach out to. So again, once again, Dan, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. All right.
My pleasure, Brian. I love the conversation. Thanks for having me as your guest.
Awesome. Have a good day. All right. Take care.